Welcome.
Thanks.
We have Garret from Salt Lake City here. Garret, how many times have you been to Mammoth?
I don't think I can count on two
Yeah.
hands the amount of times.
Yeah.
It's my favorite place in the country, the
I was
whole
gonna say,
Eastern Sierra.
for running or for skiing?
Only a couple times for skiing, a lot more for running or just exploring.
We'll change that come next April.
Cool. Well, you had an amazing day. You took it out hard, right? And it seems like you came in today with a purpose and some intention. Kind of walk us through that first stretch up to Twin Lakes.
Yeah, about 3/4 of a mile in, I was feeling pretty good. I'd slid up next to Christian Allen, and we were in about fifth, right behind like Remy, Philemon, and Patrick. And I looked over to him. I was like, "You gonna go with these guys?" And he kind of looked at me and shook his head. And I was like, like F it, like we ball. I'm just gonna see what I can do. And I figured I was gonna blow up on the Dragon's Back climb, and just kept pushing and hoped I wouldn't. And I ended up blowing up on the downhill a little bit, but I was far enough away by that point that not that many guys caught me.
Would you say, in general, that's how you like to race? Like you like to just push it until you blow up, or are you thinking a bit more strategically?
I going into a lot of races, I tell myself I'm gonna go a little bit more strategically, and the second the gun goes off, if I feel good, like, I don't wanna, like, let guys get away from me, knowing I can run at that point in the
Yeah.
race fast enough to stay with them, so, um, yeah, I definitely at, like, Headlands last week, I had started pretty far in the back, and I was in, like, 40th, about 400 meters in, and realized I felt pretty good, and, like, moved up in the top 10 by the end of the first climb, and, um, yeah, it's just fun to make sure that you get the most out of yourself, because if you don't push from the beginning, you might finish not on empty.
Yeah, I think that when we talked about kind of like potential for top Americans in today's race, like mistakenly, I think that your name was left out. You obviously are a very talented, particularly like sub ultra, sub 50K, but up to that kind of 50K mark racer, at least over the last couple of years. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your season this year and how you feel like it's set up to a fall race.
Yeah, I think that's fair that my name was left out. A lot of my results in the last year and a half haven't really been that good, so, um, yeah, I wouldn't have expected to have my name in the mix for Top American either, but, yeah, I felt like I over raced a lot last year, raced like 17 times. I was trying not to do that this year. So I
Smart.
focused really hard on Sears and all. And 8 days before that race, I got in a mountain bike crash and got 12 stitches in my knee. And I wasn't able to race that or Tatra Sky Marathon. So I went out to Europe anyway. I quit my job before and like was kind of wandering around Europe, like, what am I doing here? And just like kind of wandering aimlessly and not able to do what I came out here to do. But yeah, I did take 3 weeks off, like, completely because of the knee thing, so I wasn't able to bend it, and I felt like I came back from that pretty fresh and, like, I've yeah, felt a lot better going into these last 2 races than I have in quite a while, so there's something to be said for, like, taking some time off and then also just running easy. I haven't run any workouts since I came back and, like, you know, maybe I'd be a little bit sharper if I was, but I also feel like I run myself into the ground too much when I'm doing that, so maybe I should just be running easy all the time.
Yeah, some lessons learned, it sounds like.
Freshness over sharpness any day, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I feel like those injuries, everyone kind of has them at some point, and I feel like everyone always inevitably comes out refreshed and stronger. But to come out, a month later and be able to do that is pretty great and pretty incredible. Um, I'm kind of curious as you're kind of finding your niche in the Golden Trail space. Are you uh committed to like staying and doing this throughout the whole season next year? Or are you looking at any other races?
We'll see how the final goes. I don't really want to think too much about next year yet, but I do want to run at the World Championships in Comp Franc in September next year. So that's kind of gonna be the main goal. So if Golden Trail clashes with that, maybe not. But I don't know. I think next big thing on tap might be a big matchup against Caleb Olson in Trans Gran Canaria in February because yeah, we haven't raced in a while and we run together a lot, and I kind of want to like jump up to an ultra for a little bit, and I think that would be
Awesome.
fun to go out there and do that.
Yeah. Would you guys jump up to the 120 there or whatever that distance
Oh,
is?
if I'm doing any of those big island races, it's got to be
It's gotta
the
be the
full
big
one.
I think that shows a lot of range. I think one thing that at least that on the outside looking in, and maybe this like just speaks to like Caleb, your training partner, and like the athletes that spend their time like in the Wasatch is that while you guys are very fast athletes, you're really passionate like mountain athletes. And I think that those things are sometimes, not always at odds with one another when it comes to like maybe getting the specific work done versus like getting a big link up done, for example? How have you found balancing that with a summer race calendar or a fall race calendar so that you can kind of get the best of both worlds?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of those big adventures, especially last summer racing so much. I like was not going on trips with Caleb or any of the other guys to go like explore new mountain ranges. Um, but yeah, I think there's space for all of that stuff. Like it's still worth it to learn how to run in really technical off trail terrain, and it makes the actual running feel so much easier. You're just floating along like on trails like this. Um, and yeah, like you need to find joy in your running or else you're not going to like stick around in the sport, right? So um if the workouts aren't fun, like just go on a fun adventure in the mountains. Like fitness will come. Like if you're having fun with it, you're going to run a lot better anyway.
Rewinding a little, just get a little bit of background on you. You came from Cal, where you ran track and field and cross country, and obviously had that very rigorous style of training and someone writing your programs and stuff like that. How do you approach running now? What kind of learnings do you incorporate now that you did from college, and how do you feel like that's helped you get to where you are?
Um, Actually, earlier this summer, I was having my college coach me for a few months.
Awesome.
So we were just doing a lot of like longer strength work, and it was like a lot faster than I'd been running in a long time, but nothing compared to what I was running in college. Just like a
Mhm.
lot longer workouts. And I honestly think before I like got injured, I was probably running a little bit too much. Like I think the learnings that or like the lessons that I've taken from college is I was always running too hard then, and I would show up to races most of the time not ready to perform the way that I should have, and I kind of forgot that for a little while. But I think that's a good thing to remember. Like
Mhm.
don't leave it all out in training. Show up to race day fresh, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and speaking of trying to race day fresh, it sounds like due to injury, that's what happened this year. We talked a little bit about the race today, about how things kind of went out hot, and you were like, "Well, I guess I've got to try to go for it." I was kind of everywhere up at the top, where I didn't see you. I actually didn't get to see you until you came through McCoy because the men had finally moved up kind of high enough into the women's race for me to catch you before I had to bounce. And at that point, you weren't that far behind Remy, kind of sitting in fifth all of a sudden, which was really cool to witness. Walk us through kind of coming over the top of the mountain, those like moves kind of into the descent and kind of how it played out between there and ultimately seeing you come across the finish line in seventh today.
Yeah, I felt like I was running a little bit in no man's land for a lot of the race because Elazine, Philemon, Remy, and Patrick all kind of took off, and there wasn't really any staying with them. By the time we were on the Dragon's back, I couldn't see them anymore.
Mhm.
But I had a big gap or a decent gap on everybody behind me, and I kept expecting someone to come blow by me on the Dragon's back because I didn't really feel like I was moving that well on it. But every time I came around a switchback, I'd have like a little bit bigger gap on the next guy. Um, and yeah, coming over the top, I saw Rod and Tommy Sullivan up there, and Tommy was running with me for a little bit while he was filming, and um, yeah, I felt like I got a lot of good energy from like the crowd up there. It's always like a really nice thing to have a lot of people cheering for you up there, and like came onto the descent and was just kind of like picking off women as I saw them up ahead of me, and I was cramping pretty bad once we got a couple miles into the descent and trying to like hold that off, but like knowing that somebody was probably going to come catch me. So by the time I got to the garage, I actually stopped to grab some like electrolytes there because I like was trying to hold off the cramps, and Daniel Pattis was like right behind me at that point, so he went by, and then Marco Filosi was right behind him, and I heard these loud footsteps, like heavy grunting, heavy breathing. I'm like, who is that? And then I hear Marco's voice, and like we're pretty good friends. We've like raced a lot on the Golden Trail series, and he actually like hosted me in Italy last month
Oh, cool.
while I was out there. So it was really cool seeing him go by, and he was very encouraging as he went by, and Cesare Maestri was also pretty close behind him, so I was just getting rolled up by the Italians, but luckily I was able to hold off Cesare, and yeah, came into the finish and like went by Rachel like right before the finish, and she had some encouraging words, and it was really nice to um, yeah, see her and hear that.
How'd you get out of those cramps?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I was just running straight legged for most of the last 30 minutes.
I really only have insight into your Strava, race performances, which you have amazing recaps. Everyone should go follow Garrett and read his recaps. They're hilarious. But It seems like cramping is like a pretty common theme. Have you boiled that down to anything, and do you want to try anything new moving forward?
I keep trying new things,
Yeah.
and I want to tell myself it's just because I'm not getting enough water and electrolytes in, but it might just be that I'm overreaching and like no matter how much I put down, it's gonna happen anyway. But
Good problem to have then.
yeah, I after the Headlands race, I cramped there too, and I told myself I should probably do 3 bottles for Mammoth, and I just didn't listen to that advice, and I just did 2 today, and started cramping. So maybe I should just try taking in a little bit more.
Yeah, Rod knows a nutritionist that you could probably talk to.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, Rod seems to have gotten it figured out this year. That's for sure.
I don't know. You think you do, and then you don't. Something always happens.
I think maybe final question on my end, and then we'll let Rod maybe have the final word here too. Is okay. So you mentioned that maybe going to Trans Gran Canaria, one of the island races, kind of early winter. Reflecting on this season where you raced a lot less than last year, kind of finding a balance in that maybe going into 2025. What can we expect maybe for that season to look like?
I'm not really sure yet. I want to figure out what the qualifiers are for the U.S.
Worlds.
team for World Championships and kind of center my season around that. But yeah, hopefully not racing 17 times again.
Yeah, Lauren Puretz yesterday was also like, yeah, I kind of want to know what the qualifiers are. So I think we're all waiting anxiously for that.
Well, great to have you, Garrett. Excited to see what you do next year. It sounds like there's going to be a ski season in between.
Yeah, always
and then.
is.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Perfect. Taking that fitness to the island, hopefully in February. Okay. Round of applause for our top American today, Garrett.
Thanks, guys.